About a week ago, the Secretary General of the United Nations published his annual report on sexual exploitation and abuse in peacekeeping operations. Peacekeepers, UN peacekeepers, military and civilian, who committed acts or committed direct sexual violence. Now, that report, which the Secretary General released, was the culmination of roughly 2 years of assessing the fractured response of the United Nations to sexual violence in peacekeeping operations. And at the outset of that assessment, the Secretary General did something quite unusual but terribly important. He appointed a panel of 3 experts. He commissioned them himself, a panel of 3 experts, to review the 4 peacekeeping operations in the field from which the majority of allegations were derived. That was the Congo and Haiti and Liberia and South Sudan. And he wanted to receive from them an assessment of the UN's response and recommendations. He got the expert report at the end of 2013. That report was never made public until this week, when AIDS Free World published it along with a statement to all of the missions of the United Nations so that they would know that the report which the Secretary General had released was fundamentally different from the expert's report which he had commissioned. We got the report from an anonymous source within the United Nations itself. Now, frankly, the reason the report wasn't released, the expert report wasn't released, was because it was an indictment of United Nations practices. I just don't have the time in 3 or 4 minutes to give you a panorama of the range of indictments, but fundamentally they indicted the reporting process. There's so much non-reporting, under-reporting. There's a culture of silence and a culture of fear. There are so many channels of reporting that are complex and confused. It was an indictment of the numbers used, the suggestion that numbers were going down, when in fact the numbers are absolutely implausible when measured against the knowledge we have about the various allegations. The allegations themselves are divided into substantiated and unsubstantiated, and it's assumed that the unsubstantiated are false allegations, but they're not. They are in significant measure a product of inadequate investigation. And indeed, the investigations are so inadequate that at this moment in time, it takes 18 months on average to conclude an investigation. And then the experts' report pointed out that far more concern is shown for the perpetrator than is ever shown for the victim. And finally, they called into question the whole rationale of zero tolerance, a mantra embraced by the Secretary General, who says even one case of sexual violence is one too many. You know what's so disheartening about all of this? Everyone in the senior echelons of the United Nations knows that what the experts have said is valid, and no one says anything. There are no whistleblowers, despite the fact that they talk about it endlessly in private themselves. It's so disheartening. It means you get a Secretary General's report which is illusory, misleading, deceptive, in places dishonest, cannot be reconciled with the report of the experts. The United Nations, which demands transparency from all its member countries, fiercely resists transparency itself. That was last week. I'm Stephen Lewis.